Hello viewers, this is Paladin of Odin, and this is some more Magic the Gathering Online. This is another episode of the Standard Commentary series. And we've got black-red vampires versus either a mono-red wolf deck or just a green-red werewolf deck that hasn't gotten a green yet, and has been very fortunate to get his red creatures. But I guess we'll have to wait and see, but Scourge Wolf is a ridiculously good card against pretty much every vampire creature. Oh, he's going aggressive here, attacking in with the Gyre Reach Bandit and the Wolf. 2/2 first strike and a 3/2 haste. And blocking is Ravenous Bloodseeker, discarding a card to turn it into a 3/1. Discarding Fiery Temper to kill off the Scourge Wolf. So that'll kill off all of Red's board and leave vampires with an Indulgent Aristocrat and call the Bloodline. And, Indulgent Aristocrat has a lot of potential. He really, really does. It's just, I haven't gotten a chance to see him make much of his potential. So, using Call of the Bloodline, discarding Asylum Visitor, and casting it for its madness cost. So now he has a 1/1 lifelink and a 3/1. Down to one card in his hand. So he's almost to the point where Asylum Visitor's ability will be active. Aristocrat attacks in for 1, lifelink, so Vampires is up to 22, and Wolves is down to 18. Breakneck Rider, currently a 3/3. Okay, so it is red-green werewolves, and he was just green mana screwed. And very, very fortunate to pull so many mono-red werewolves so that he could actually do something. Drana, Liberator of Malakir. Well, that's bad news for werewolves. He is going to have trouble stopping flyers unless he has Moonlight Hunt or Rabid Bite, things of that nature. I mean, he could have Fiery Temper of his own. Oh, Indulgent Aristocrat sacrificing the tokens, so that is quite the army right now. 2/2 lifelink, a 4/2, and a 3/4 flyer first strike. And he's choosing not to attack in here because he has no cards in hand. He wants to keep the Asylum Visitor alive so that he can use her ability. And more importantly, he's in the lead with momentum right now. Werewolves is trying to catch up, which honestly shouldn't take a whole lot, provided the 3 cards in his hand are creatures or, something that can kill a creature. Duskwatch Recruiter, a very good creature to have right now, especially since he's pretty low on cards as well. Unfortunately, he didn't really do anything to affect the board. So Vampires is still holding on to the momentum lead. Asylum Visitor activates, takes him down to 21, but now he's got 2 cards. He's got 5 mana to use, which should be plenty to play pretty much anything in his deck. So discarding a land to make the vampire token, because honestly at this point I don't see that he needs any more land in play. And sacking it to the Indulgent Aristocrat. So now he has a very, very powerful army. A 4/5 flyer, which is going to make all these guys bigger after she hits. So that's going to be a 6/4, that's going to be a 4/4. And the only way that he can kill either one of these creatures is to double block. And it looks like he didn't read that as well as he should have. But then again, it did save him 4 damage and keep his Duskwatch Recruiter alive. But I don't think that it's going to really help him. He has no way to stop this flyer, and he concedes. So he got really lucky in the early game and got a bunch of red cards to play when he had no green mana. So hopefully the second game we'll get to see a better run from him, because vampires and werewolves have a very similar style. It's just I think that vampires has a little bit more synergy given all of the madness abilities that they can use, whereas werewolves doesn't have that, and they have to rely on some hard cast stuff. So let's go to game 2. All right, good start for werewolves. First turn village messenger, 1/1 haste. Vampires can't do anything about it right now, so that's 1 free damage. And more importantly, as a first turn drop, it's not going to be too hard for him to be able to flip this into the 2/2 menace. And, a 2/2 menace doesn't sound like all that powerful a card, but really, in early game, it is very powerful. Just that having to block with 2 creatures is really difficult. And another red start for him, Scourge Wolf, which is a really good card against early vampires. A 2/2 first strike pretty much kills every vampire that they play unmodified. So attacking in with the messenger again, gets through. He wants to keep his Indulgent Aristocrat because, as we've seen, his ability is very powerful, provided you have the opportunity to use it. But something else I was thinking about was, I know I've talked about this in another video about the werewolves and how, it's just missing a little bit to make it a competitive deck. Alright, so no spells were cast by vampires, so Village Messenger becomes the Moonrise Intruder, which is a 2/2 menace. Throws down another Village Messenger. And it looks like he's stuck on 2 mana, but he had a really good hand for so few mana. And he's going all in here. No blocks from vampires, so he's down to 13. Back to what I was saying about werewolves. For me, there's just a little bit missing. Just a little bit missing to make it run smoothly and make it as powerful as it feels like it should be. And I'm wondering if the Eldrazi werewolves in Eldritch Moon are gonna be what they need. Ooh, Lightning Axe Fiery Temper combo. That is a really good play. And very, very good synergy. 5 damage to a creature, he's going to kill off the Scourge Wolf, pays the Madness cost for Fiery Temper to kill off the flipped Village Messenger. So for 2 red mana, he gets rid of 2, nasty creatures for him. Goes in with the Indulgent Aristocrat. It's a 1/1 lifelink, so he gets 1 life back. The Messenger is still a 1/1, so, in this race, no one is getting ahead. But back to the Eldrazi Werewolves. It's possible that all werewolves, well, that's the thing. The way I see it is the new Eldrazi Werewolves can be very powerful because you can control when they transform. The only problem that I see is that most of them are really expensive. But, as we've seen, particularly in this match, Werewolves has a lot of early creatures that could potentially hold the line long enough for you to get those big, nasty Eldrazi Werewolves in play and transformed. But I don't know if at that stage in the game, if you make it that far, that the Eldrazi werewolves are big and nasty enough to turn the tide in your favor. So, Vampires has Olivia mobilized for war. Vampires or Werewolves has a flipped Village Messenger, so now he's got the Moonrise Intruder, which is a 2/2 menace, which at the moment Vampires cannot block. Howlpack Resurgence, so now he's a 3/3 trample menace. So most likely he's getting it in for 3 here. Can't really think of anything. I mean, if he had a way to discard a card, a Fiery Temper would have been perfect to deal with this Moonrise Intruder right now. But he didn't have a way to do that. But now he's got 5 mana. Asylum Visitor. Discards Stensia Masquerade, which has Madness, so he can play that for its Madness cost, which is its mana cost. And now, ow. That was a lot of damage, and attacking creatures you control have first strike, and then whenever a vampire you control deals combat damage to a player, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So now all of his creatures are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, he's got a 2/2 lifelink here, a 4/4 flyer here, and a 5/3 here. Werewolves is going to have to deal with these creatures or he's going to die. I can't see him getting enough aggression on the board to be able to fight fire with fire here, or muscle for muscle, as it is. Duskwatch Recruiter. Still not good enough. Since they're going to have first strike, and Asylum Visitor is letting him basically draw 2 cards a turn this now. A Fiery Impulse from Werewolves would be pretty good right here at some point. I mean, he'd be able to kill off the Indulgent Aristocrat or, force him to sacrifice it, which you can. You can sacrifice it to itself. I had to check myself just to make sure, but you can. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like Werewolves has a response. So he's just having to deal with this muscle to muscle. Now, he does have blockers. He can block the Asylum Visitor and the Indulgent Aristocrat. And if he uses them, if he puts Duskwatch Recruiter in front of the Aristocrat, he could kill it. He'll lose both of his creatures, but he'll only take 4 damage, because at least they don't have trample. So it'll save him a lot of damage. But unfortunately, it's going to ruin his board. And Indulgent Aristocrat sacrificed to itself. So, down to 5. And there's really no way that I can see that Werewolves could come through here. There's just no way for him to deal with this 6/6 flyer and this 6/4 with so few mana. So unfortunately for this Werewolves deck, I mean, honestly, there was nothing wrong with his run combat-wise. As you guys saw, he played plenty of creatures. He had ways to make them bigger. It's just he had no way of interacting with the board, as far as we saw, outside of just straight-up combat damage. And Vampires had very good advantages in those situations. Okay, 2 mana, Duskwatch Recruiter, and that's game. So, unfortunately for Werewolves, Vampires just ripped them apart. And unfortunately, most of the time, that's what happens to Werewolves, because they're just missing that little bit of synergy. For example, with Vampires, they have the whole vampire abilities plus madness enablers and madness spells, so they have that synergy between those two things. Whereas Werewolves, doesn't have really any synergy outside of their creature type. There's nothing that Werewolves does that makes spells cheaper or lets you cast them when you discard them, like with Madness, or plenty of other things. It's just they're missing that one piece of synergy that could make them somewhat competitive. Asylum Visitor, number 2. And attacking all in, and that's the game. So, like I said, unfortunate for Werewolves. Vampires took this match. And like I said, maybe with Eldritch Moon, Werewolves will find the synergies that they needed to, that they need to be competitive. As it stands, playing Werewolves in Standard is not viable. And I'm going to end the video here. Sorry it took so long, but that was Red-Green Werewolves versus Black-Red Vampires. And if you liked what you saw, hit that like and subscribe button for me, and I'll see you in the next video.